Before we hand it over to Charles, I will present briefly Charles Daisy. He has a master's degree in education technology from Université Laval, for which he received the Prize of Excellence. Charles teaches creative content at Permanent Education, Adult Education Université de Montréal for about 20 years now. And he is a communicator, works in science, teaching science, and post-prod and media and project management. It's recent, 2024. He has a degree in that, and he is IQPC member as a pedagogical counselor for training and education. Have a webinar, everybody. Thank you, Nicole. Yes, I will be celebrating my first anniversary at IQPC. So in order to launch things, start things off, I propose an experiment. There are two ways of following the presentation. You can do that here within the screen share that I'm going to just launch in a few seconds. And you can also follow the presentation directly in a collaborative table that you can find in a Miro table. Nicole, can you please share the link in the chat? There we go. So if you click on that, you will have a window that will open in your navigator, and then you will be able to find that in a shared table. So while I do that, I'm just going to give you a short introduction and see if you can join this shared document table. I don't know how many people we can have in this kind of shared table collaborative document, so there shouldn't be a problem. There's not that many people here today. You can follow easily. So we're going to do the screen share. Yes, it's coming. Thank you. So I will share my screen. And if you will follow here on this whiteboard, this collaborative space, you can click on the cursor and it will bring you up to the first slide. If you click on my cursor, you'll be able to follow my presentation. If you explore the canvas, the table, you won't follow along, but if you go with my pointer, follow my pointer, you'll be continuing to follow the presentation. So I will make sure that we will start the presentation here. So what I'm going to present today, what I'm going to share today, comes from personal experience, professional experience, and people who have had experience in university education. It's been a few years now, since 2012 really, that I'm using a tool called Prezi. It's like a bit of nostalgia, digital nostalgia. It's been about 12 years, sorry, that this tool has been available. So I've been using it for a long time. I downloaded it immediately 12 years ago. It's a big canvas. You can put images, text, videos, different elements, and I studied with this tool. I used it as a student, and I still use it to do presentations in the classroom. So I then got interested in other tools that I was interested in to do brainstorming activities and whiteboarding activities. This was in a professional setting. And I started to use that about 5 years ago in the classroom to do collaborative activities with the students. And through all this time, what I noticed is there's a great curiosity in terms of the white space, this online white space, collaborative space. So during my master's that I finished recently, I did a project on the whiteboard in a very specific context, in the context of higher education and also online training. That said, the presentation today applies for online training as well as in-person training. And during this project that I've done a literature review, and I've done interviews with two profs, one at Cégep, one at university, two teachers, and there was also a guidance counselor as well. So that's what I'm sharing with you today. And as we will soon discover, this collaborative white space, this whiteboard, is a very relevant tool for its familiarity, for its flexibility, and its variety of different usage. We're going to talk about some key concepts. We're going to give you a definition of active learning. It's a bit of an umbrella term. We will also define what this collaborative space is, what form it will take. Then we will look at the advantages, why we'd use a white space, a collaborative whiteboard. So we will have a question period around the parts of this that we started to look at. And a lot of different examples of different activities and some advice to launch this the right way and use this whiteboard efficiently. I'm going to give you some more information following the presentation. If you are ready, I think let's jump into the crux of things here. Let's talk about active learning, active education. So I'm going to go quickly over this. I will begin at point number 2. How do we define active education? There's Freeman, who says that it's defined by collaborative activities that will bring forward group discussions, so shared ideas in discussion form. So that's the active learning zone, as we call it. So these exchanges, these discussions must engage higher level cognitive processes. So you will see here the Bloom taxonomy, understand, memorize, apply. It starts at the cognitive level. We're talking about analysis, evaluation, and creation. So the activities that happen in the classroom or online must stimulate these aspects of cognitive activity. So AEC, so it's a little bit of an acronym, easy to remember. So analyze, evaluate, and create. And then we've got Bransom that says that to be in this active learning zone, there has to be some thinking, some reflection on these strategies and this style of learning and the strategies used by the students. So there's another element here that we add to the active learning zone, the active education zone. I'm presenting this, I'm sharing this because I really like it. It's an adaptation of Lombardi. It's pretty recent, Lombardi et al., and they work very hard to really encapsulate this and extract the purity, the crux of it from the disciplines that it's attached to. So really the key is interaction. So we see here the student that is at the center of things. The student has interactions with the teacher, so that's essential. The teacher asks questions, so it's a two-way street. There are interactions there. There are also interactions between the content, the discipline they're studying. So the student will do research, will read, will seek to master these concepts. And so these concepts don't just go through the teacher. The student is directly in contact with the content of the discipline. And the student has also interactions with the colleagues and teammates during group work. So that's one of the conditions. And the fourth condition that is maybe a little harder to define is the part where the student must think about their own learning, their own education. So within this table, you have a great definition of active learning. That's a good representation of it. So what do we take away? Say we need cognitive activities at a high level, and we need multiple modes of interaction, including a feedback loop with yourself, self-interaction, if you will. So we will go to the next slide and talk about the next concept, which is the collaborative whiteboard. So, and here I invite you to answer within the chat. Do you have experience with collaborative whiteboards? So I invite you in the chat, and not the Q&A, in the chat. Please indicate the tool that you use. There's a whole bunch of them here on screen. So I'd like to know what whiteboard tool you use. And so for me personally, I use Miro. The presentation is in Miro format today. I'll explain why it's my favorite tool. So this is a systematic review that happened. It's a university in Scotland, Edinburgh. They did some serious research in evaluating many collaborative whiteboards. So there's criteria here that are presented. There are about 20 criteria that are that are presented here that are weighted differently to represent different values. So there's Miro at first place with a note of 85%, a mark of 85%. The second one is Concept Board. It's up there with a grade about 76%. So there's a big difference between the first one and all the others. Because Miro is a tool that is very well adapted to education, very versatile. It was developed to work in small business, to do prototyping, do brainstorming as a team, but you can really use it in an education concept. It's well adapted to that. And they really have planned out things very well. So in an educational concept, Miro is free. As soon as you have an institutional email address, you can have access to Miro, and you can just provide proof of employment. It's very easy to have access to this free account for the education sector. So you can add 100 members to your whiteboard, to your shared whiteboard, and you can also make a request to go up to 200. So if you teach, for example, in French, you have a lot of classes, you can have one account for all your students. There's no limit to the usage, really. So that's one of the good reasons of using Miro. It got really good ratings, a good grade, and it's adapted very well for education. You can use it and explore this tool for free. So we'll just talk about a few characteristics of this whiteboard tool. It's a tool that you can explore at will. It's free. So one of the things that's the most complex when we start with this collaborative whiteboard is to navigate within this tool. So I explain it this way. Navigation is like you're going on Google Maps and you're moving around the map, for example. So you have this way of moving around this big sandbox, this big white board, if you will, and to go and zoom in and zoom out, and they have this huge explorable area. So I use this to explain the basic concepts. Then you have a whole bunch of tools, a toolbox, digital post-its, text boxes, crayons, different ways of communicating. So that's pretty easy to use. You have a video here that allows you to master the different functionalities and the basic tools of this collaborative whiteboard. But I insist on an important tool. You really have to think about from the conceptual side of things to lock your content when you're done putting together a presentation. And I say that because you invite the public, your users, the content, if they are not locked, they can then move them, erase them, modify them, and I think it's not necessarily out of bad will, but accidentally it can happen where you make some changes inadvertently. So that's a very important part of it. Also, you have many communication tools within this collaborative whiteboard. So you can do presentations, a kind of a slideshow like we can do in PowerPoint. You can write comments, you can chat, you can do online surveys and votes. There's a tool to record the screen, what happens on the screen. So within Miro, the presentation today could be recorded with all the actions you can see here. You can see the drawings, you can hear the sound, see the video. So while I do all of this, it's all being recorded. It's a great tool for distance learning or when you want to give instructions around an activity in Miro and you don't want to be stuck doing it live. So it's very useful. So that's the whiteboard. So now we're going to look at the advantages of this collaborative whiteboard. So we have many. I'm just going to make sure I haven't missed anything. So among the advantages, there is the support and participation of all these students. What I mean by this is when you teach in a classroom setting and you give, it's often the same students that will answer the questions, that will be a bit more active. And we have maybe some students that are more reserved, that are more timid, that you'll hear from less. So the class misses out on the point of view of these people. So I want to say, in a way, it's an inclusive tool, but in working with the whiteboard, the students they have another way of interacting. Instead of just speaking, they can write their comments on digital post-it notes or in a text box, for example, which means that the teacher can hear from all these students in the classroom, and also respecting their preferred means of communication. So this way, we allow everybody to participate. There's also, in terms of performance, it allows, in having this whiteboarding activity in this shared space where there are many teams that will work alongside each other. You will see a great example of this shortly, but it allows a team or a person who's a bit stuck and who is looking for a spark or an idea. It goes and explore what's happening in the other teams, and it can spark creativity, bring inspiration, and allow people to get started with their creative process and encourage participation. So this collaborative whiteboard increases engagement. My participants, the ones that are participating in my study, my research, were a bit uncomfortable. The students feel obligated to participate. They feel obligated to be engaged. And they're talking about students sometimes that are a bit reserved, that sit in the back of the classroom. And so when we work with this, so that want to participate in activities and that have to elaborate, participate, give their point of view, it may bother those students that may be a little reserved, that may be a little shy. So from my point of view as a teacher, it's a good thing because we want to encourage the students as much as possible to participate. Sometimes things go fast, time seems to be flying, so this collaborative space encourages collaboration and cognitive processes, and there's also this emotional engagement in the sense that the students interact together as a team within this whiteboard space. So in all of this, there's a lot of interaction, there's a lot of back and forth and respecting people's space and point of view. So you develop this connection with your peers. So all of this is part of encouraging engagement through whiteboarding. This the whiteboard, we're still talking about these advantages of the whiteboard. So it changes the role of the teacher somewhat. So in a traditional approach where the teacher is expert on the content, expert on his discipline, and the person that gives the content to the audience, really. But the role changes with this whiteboard because we're going towards an approach that's more student-centric. So the role of the student is not just one of expert, but becomes more a facilitator that will support and encourage the students to complete these activities. So you're more of a facilitator. There's less pressure on the teacher to deliver a pedagogical performance, if you will. The students are the ones who have to work with this content. We guide them, we make suggestions, we correct. Our role is not the same. We're more of a Sherpa. The teacher is more of a facilitator. His work is more upstream in terms of preparation, because it takes time to get all of this ready. But when the activity starts in the classroom, we're available when they need us, but we can work on other stuff. So we'll see an example of this later on. So what the table allows us to do, this whiteboard, is to work in inductive mode. So we will work in deductive mode often, but this way we can work in inductive mode. So you get more into examples, you drill down a little bit, and it allows us to get some samples, some examples of answers from the class, and then to generalize, to go into a macro mode. We're much more in an inductive mode than a deductive mode. So it changes the way we do things. And another advantage here is to facilitate feedback, formative feedback. So instead of having some very active periods where we evaluate the students, we will give feedback on many occasions, many kind of evaluative and feedback activities, and that is really facilitated by this collaborative whiteboard. And you will understand the importance of this in the following example. So I'm just going to give you a short overview to start, just to help you understand the nature of these activities. I teach comms, communications, so there's a lot of examples that really touch on communication here, but I'm sure you can link that with your respective disciplines. So the activity here, the objective is to create a repository of images. So individually, the students work as a team, but individually each student will watch a video, they will do screenshots, and share the screenshots in this collaborative whiteboard. Then they have to give their comments, do analysis, and describe the different elements in these images, in these shared images. So as a team, they must discuss the best plans that they've come up with, that were inspired by the video, if you will. So they have this group discussion in the classroom, and each team will present the best aspects of what they've found. So we will look at what this looks like. So here there's a number for each of the teams. You have here the video for each of the teams, the video that they view, and then there are screenshots with the text box descriptions generated by the students. So as I said, what's interesting here is this collaborative white space makes the work visible to everybody and allows for constructive feedback, formative feedback. So I set up the activity and I roam around the classroom. I float around the classroom. Each student has their own computer. I go around, make sure everybody is okay and following the activity. And once things are launched, I will go and look at this shared space, this shared table as it evolves. So there's a lot of things that happen and things evolve quickly. But as the students are working, I can go and look and I can select and highlight some of the things that have been done. And that's what I will use at the end of the activity to give feedback and debriefing. So I can, for example, correct some things if there are teams that really haven't met the objectives of the activity. I can also showcase teams that have done particularly well or found some interesting things. So I give feedback in real time. I do that. It's a 45-50 minute activity. So within that, there is the explaining the mission, working on the mission, and the feedback on what's been done. And also, we built in the classroom a repository of images that I will come back on, and I will review the activities we've done, and maybe we can use them later on. So you create material also that can be used throughout the semester or at least a good part of the semester. So I'm just going to take a little pause here. We've seen this first exercise. I'd like to know now if you have any questions so far on what was presented. There are two questions that were asked around the software. The first one comes from Annie Généreux that says, Miro looks like Microsoft. Is it just a personal preference to use Miro, or because you have used it more than real advantage? So if you talked about all these qualities of Miro, I think we can highlight the difference between Miro and Microsoft. Yes, of course. So what you must know first and foremost is Teams allows to integrate different tools, and you can use the collaborative whiteboard from Microsoft in the Teams environment. You can also integrate the app from Miro within Teams as well. So the integration is well done, works well. So you can use it within Teams. And yes, it's a preference on my part to work with Miro because it's easier to use. We presented the literature review, and Miro really stands out for all the positive characteristics compared to Microsoft Whiteboard, if I remember the name correctly. Two other questions? Yes, there's Marie, who sees a connection between Prezi and Miro. Is there some kind of linkage or connection between them? You talked about Miro. Is it because it is more in line with your expectations than Prezi? Well, Prezi, as the name suggests, is presentation. It's a presentation software, first and foremost. The basic concept of it is a big white canvas, an infinite space. It's like the same with zoom in, zoom out functionality. So Prezi uses more. I don't really use it much regularly anymore, but Prezi remained in a presentation kind of mode with integrating video and other functionalities like that. But Miro is more a collaborative tool, and it's really well suited to encourage team collaboration much more than Prezi. Last question is from Vivienne Brouillard. Can we lock only certain parts in Miro to let people modify certain things? Yes, good point. Yes, of course. You can choose the parts that you want to lock. So it's not everything that will be locked. And and we can choose to leave some closed and some open. So we will look at that later on. I've made it possible for you to download all of these resources within the presentation. It'll be at the end of the presentation. So we will continue with the next section. We will see some concrete examples of activities. So the classic is a ideation activity. It's a whiteboarding activity. So when you start a project, for example, if you go with the whiteboard with the brainstorming, it's a great way to use this collaborative whiteboard tool. So it's a great activity to start with. We use digital post-it notes or text boxes. So in an activity like that, you have to really give good instructions and have a very clear framework. So we have to situate the students in the beginning with a leading question. So it's really a brainstorming activity that answers a specific question. We are in a judgment-free zone. All ideas are accepted for now. We just want to generate ideas that start with a word or a verb and formulate complete ideas so that we can share that and go from there as a group. So there's an example here that you can see that these are pictures that were taken. You could have used real post-its if you want, or digital post-its, just to show you that you can go from a physical environment to a digital one quite easily. But when you do a brainstorming session, the problem is not having ideas or generating ideas. It's to analyze them, to work with these ideas. So with this collaborative whiteboard, I find it much easier to, first of all, the sticky notes are easy to move around. The post-it notes can be played with, moving them around to create groupings or classify them in different categories. So you see the example here of the different categories. So characteristics, format, and content. So you put the relevant notes into each category. You can proceed then in ranking them. You have tools that allows the people to vote. You can put an X or a check mark, or you can have emojis to react to certain digital sticky notes, so post-it notes. So it allows certain categories of ideas that were shared in a brainstorming session. For example, actionable ideas, long-term vision. So these are just examples of how you organize things if you want to. So if we go a bit further into this, once the ideas and the notes are separated into different categories, you can do a screenshot and share that with an AI tool that will be able to give us a synthesis of all of this, an overview. So that saves a lot of time. So if you do a brainstorm with 5 or 6 people, I think the quantity of ideas is manageable. But if you do a brainstorm at the classroom level or above 15 people, and you have people that are very creative, you will find yourself with a lot of content. And it'll be more difficult to sift through and manage that. So AI is very useful in this context in processing all these ideas and separating them out into different categories and things. So following a brainstorming session. So I will go now to the next slide. We are still in the brainstorming category, but now we're looking at putting together ideas, collecting ideas around a subject. It's a variation on a theme, really. So at the beginning, when you start a new chapter or a new part of a class, we have to evaluate people's preconceived notions. So what does the environment mean to you? What it's a really concept that can be viewed with different lenses. So you can get really different ways of looking at the environment. So from the examples given by these students, you can then correct or tighten up the framework to define the concept you want to explore. So that's a variation on the theme of collecting, putting together ideas. You can also evaluate the preconceived notions or knowledge of the students on a certain subject. For example, there's an example of an activity here, an SVA type of activity. So the S for what I know, ce que je sais, what I want to know, V, what I want to know, veut savoir in French, and what I've learned, appris in French, so SVA. So at the beginning of the activity, the students write what they know on a subject, but also what they don't know and what they would like to learn. So, and at the end of the activity, we look at that and do an overview and define and better explore what they've learned specifically. So there are more details here on this activity. There's a link to the activity if you want to follow along. So the conceptual map, the concept map, the heuristic map, if you will. This is a representation of a group of concepts, ideas around a subject or a specific question. So it's a classic kind of activity. With this collaborative table, this collaborative space. So in these boxes, we have these specific concepts that we've identified. This concept map allows for verbs that will link the different concepts or different notions. And this way, we develop this conceptual map. So be careful here. If you give a mission to your students to build a conceptual map, a concept map as a team on a subject they're not familiar with, they're not good at, it's a very difficult task for your students. And I propose a variation here that's interesting in this collaborative space, because you can manipulate, you can create text boxes, you can make changes. So it's like a word jumble. There are certain words that are already there, and the students have to fill in the blanks. They must find the concepts and put them in the right places. So if you think of this activity that will last 60 minutes, 90 minutes maybe, it's more realistic as a starting point. So this kind of conceptual map with some of it filled in and some of it empty. So it's easier to complete in a shorter time. So this concept map, you can use it in different ways. You can use it in a specific activity for one class, for one period, but you can use it on many in many periods as well. So you will have a continuation in the second class. You will add to what you've done, and the third one even more, and the fourth one will do a review. So at the fourth class. So it's a great tool that will allow us to review all of that and have a good macro vision of what we've seen so far. So we build on what we've done and build knowledge that way. So you can also share this with other groups and see what the others have done. So around this concept map, there's also a flow chart, an algorithmic chart, if you will. So it's a diagram that visually explains a workflow or a process. So I'll give an example here, a simple one that you can do in your classroom. You can do this yourself if you want. So you start with a question. It's a workflow. It's a decision tree. So there's yes, no. There are two choices that generate more options, and you get to an end result. So do it or don't do it. So once again, this can be done within one activity in one classroom period around the theme of presenting different concepts in a collaborative whiteboard space. So let's carry on. Are you still with me? Yes, we are right there with you, Shal. Perfect, excellent. So we are looking here at the Socratic approach, the approach by a question. So it's an approach that I really like. The teacher, the prof, brings forward questions where the students have to give their point of view. So it's an activity we can use after assigned reading or a more theoretical class. So it's all about mobilizing knowledge and drawing from their knowledge in different ways by answering questions. In the class that I am giving, we will compare. We're talking about podcasts, comparing podcasts versus radio. We're talking about radio that we all know very well, and then we are now comparing that with podcasting, which is a new concept relatively. So we separate them out into teams, 3 to 5 people. I give them one question. I assign each team one question they must answer. Within their teams, they will work in the following way. They will do a solo brainstorming in silence for 5 minutes. That's when the student will draw on their own knowledge and resources. And there's a time where they share as a team. It's about 15 minutes of group discussion. So it sometimes takes some time to get all that going. And then 10 minutes to answer the question together and draw out the highlights of what was found. Each of the teams will then share their results, the answer to the question assigned to them at the outset. What does it look like? Here, there's a question here that we use. Do you think that podcasting gives more freedom for creating content than radio broadcasting? Why? So it's not an easy question. We ask them to justify their answers. They have to drill down and explore this at length. Just to give you a macro view of this, you have many questions here one per group that will stimulate their thinking. What we can see here is when we do group presentations in the classroom, each of the students has a laptop. They all interact with this collaborative whiteboard space. When we get into the presentation part at the end of the activity, I want to draw attention to the front of the class. What we see on the screen is presented, is shown on the whiteboard at the front of the classroom. So all these students are interacting with me, and the center point is the whiteboard in front of the class and not the laptop. I will share the answers that they've formulated in teams within this whiteboard space. So we go over the different teams in this way. I'd like to draw your attention to two elements. Always identify the team so that these students can refer to the collaborative white space and look and see what question we're talking about. So you have to make it very clear. Each of the zones here, there's a space to work. It's a workspace for each team, and it doesn't impede others. So this is the question-based approach. And then we will see the project-based approach. So this is an approach that the example I want to show you is not so much around the activity, but the way the activity is done, around project management specifically, on how to realize this project. What I propose to the students, it starts at class 11 and finishes at class 15. So on a few week period, there are some different steps they must follow. I put a cursor, say you are here. So this gives you an idea of where we are. If you're not on class 12, if you're not in ideation, you have to catch up. So I give them some cues, and then I will share how we structure all of this. You have one column per team 301, 302, 302, etc., 303, etc. And then what I ask them here is I've got putting together a team who has what role in each team. It's a project in which they will produce a podcast. So I ask them who they will interview. I ask them to give me a synopsis, an overview of their project in this white space here. So that means that the students will share with each other their synopsis, their script. So it allows them to see what others are doing, compare and contrast. It's an open space where we all share information. I ask them to say when they're going to record an episode number, visual material, and as the project develops, the table here gets filled out, and we have the videos, the final product, and that was published on YouTube, the end result. This collaborative space, this collaborative whiteboard, becomes a space to coordinate the project. It's a common space where we realize the project together. So we will look at this now. I have put together here, I've given you some examples of activities, and you have a list here that I've put together of different activities, different formulations, planning activities, etc., exploration activities. You have some more specific details here. If you're inspired by some of these, you can do more research and find further examples that resemble these. And this is a question that I always ask. Are these activities or approaches, is this active education? Is this really active pedagogy? That's the question we're exploring today, and I will answer that. It's not necessarily active learning. Remember what we've indicated a bit earlier. So that we are in the active learning mode, favorizing high-level cognitive activities. So you remember our acronym, AEC, activities with analysis, evaluation, and creation. So we need all three elements. We require interaction between students, with the teacher, with the content, but also self-interaction, self-feedback. That part is a bit more difficult sometimes within this collaborative space. When we do our ideation, we produce our plan, we have to allow for some time where the student will think about the different things they've learned, how they've done things, what process they've followed, and how they've interacted with colleagues. How can we do this? We can have an individual evaluation, meaning the student will have a report to produce related to the activity they've participated in. You can have exercises or quiz questions we can ask that they must answer. Personally, what I do is I use a journal. I use journaling to accompany the student throughout the semester. I say this, I talk about reflective practices. Active thinking on the student's part. So the idea is to take some time alone to look at what's been done throughout the semester, the work that's been done within a team. So the journal starts with very specific questions, and I really give my expectations on what I expect from this journal, and to look at all the different interactions, including self-interaction, self-feedback, that remain in the active education zone, to remain in the active learning space. So I'm just going to go back to sharing my screen here. We're missing something here. Okay, here we go. I just want to make sure that we've covered everything here. So sorry for... I'm making you a bit dizzy. I'm moving a bit quickly, but do you have another question period? Yes, it's at the end of the presentation. Thank you. So we are getting into best practices to use this collaborative whiteboard. The first piece of advice, and I begin with, it's not the best example, but if you ask your students to solve a problem and describing their process in a collaborative whiteboard that they're not familiar with teammates they don't know that well, you're really asking a lot. They find themselves with a steep learning curve where they have to learn content very quickly with a tool they're not familiar with. So it's really not the best way. It really saturates the students very quickly, and you won't get great results that way. The idea to begin with this whiteboard is to go slow with simple activities. The example here is an ice-breaking activity with real-time and non-real-time modes. Why do we use both? If we do real-time ice-breaking activity, students in the classroom will begin the activity for 15-30 minutes, and then you can help them along and assist them to really learn the basics of this tool. And it won't be perfect. The exercise might not be completed in time, but you give them the choice of continuing this work at home, and they're alone with their computer, with the tool. They can take the time they need to explore, to learn, to finish the activity at home. So there's not a time-based stress there. So there's limited time in the classroom. But at home, they have this freedom to explore. They have time. What I would add as well is that the collaborative whiteboard, to use it for one activity in the semester, the question I ask is it worth introducing a new digital tool to do one activity with this collaborative whiteboard? So my question is, if you're going to introduce this, because it's going to take a certain amount of time, you have to familiarize yourself with its use. Why not go with 2, 3, or many activities and invest some time to learn the tool? It's an activity that works very well with building digital skills. So if you're going to take time to learn this tool, you can use it many times in a semester, so that at the end of the semester, the student will have developed some comfort, some skills using these tools. Maybe they can use it in other classes. So that's my suggestion. When you introduce this collaborative whiteboard tool, also limit the number of people sharing this whiteboard tool. In the beginning, in Miro, you couldn't mask certain things. So you would create an activity and you would see 8 different cursors and all these people putting post-it notes at the same time. It's a bit chaotic, and for certain students, it's really difficult to concentrate. So our activities the students will get a bit overwhelmed and try to remain concentrated, and it's a bit too much. So I teach in the evening. So of course the quantity of concentration that I can obtain from my students could be a bit limited because it's evening time and they're a bit tired. So to give them a chance, we put a maximum of 8 to 10 people sharing a whiteboard space. These are some tricks to slow down the rate of activity in a whiteboard. So you can have a whiteboard space. If you have 5 teams, you create 5 whiteboards in which the students will work. So you'll reduce the number of activities in one whiteboard. And what you can do as well is you can prepare activities where you only have 2 students, like secretaries or administrators, that will be active in the whiteboard. So instead of having 6 people that are writing at the same time, there are 2 per team that take notes and relay the information into the whiteboard. So that's very good. And in any case, we have to always give clear instructions on the activity, and you can deactivate people's cursors so that the environment is a bit more zen. Planning the debriefing session. It's maybe a weak point of this collaborative whiteboard. There's not much data related to education with the collaborative whiteboard. And I draw a comparison with Moodle, for example. I build an activity in Moodle. I can see how many people completed the activity. I can see how much time was taken to complete the activity. If I have a grade to assign, I can see the results, the different parameters. So for the teacher to do a follow-up, There are analytic tools that are easy to use. Within the collaborative whiteboard space, like Miro, what I suggest to do is to ask your students to create an account, a Miro account, and to encourage them to do that. Because if not, they will be active anonymously and will not be able to have any data. So what will happen is in Miro, you can go in the list of users and you will have access to their last activity. It's the last time they were active. If you have students that were not connected for the last 3 weeks, you can maybe prompt them, see if there's an issue or they have a problem in some way. And one more thing to add, you can also, if you work with digital post-it notes like this, you can share the name of the user. So you can see who wrote what post-it note. It's a way to do a debriefing and follow-up around the participation of the students, and often we have this instinct of using this collaborative whiteboard to present video, to share video in a digital environment. The sharing or viewing of videos, especially with distance learning, it's not great. Sometimes the streaming isn't good and creates interference, and it's disrupts the flow sometimes. So when there are activities where we share videos, we always prefer individual offline viewing, and then we have discussions after the students have viewed the video. It's a better approach rather than streaming it to everybody. The other point is to ask for feedback, to ask for feedback from the students. So when we start with the inverted classroom or we introduce new digital tools, it's really enriching to get the feedback of students, because, and I'll give you an example. So with a keyboard and with a mouse, if you have a computer, a laptop, and you are using the touchpad to navigate within Miro, the navigation is different. It's not this, they don't have the same experience as a user as you do. So there's a lot of information around their experience in this collaborative white space, and you can, in this way, capture all of that. Sometimes at a break or at the end of a class or at the end of an activity, there's some debriefing time. I ask some questions to the students, and I try to improve the way they work with the tool. So don't hesitate to ask them these questions, these exploratory questions. It's always very enriching to encourage interaction and see how they interact with the digital tools. So we're getting to the end of the presentation. I have a document for you here. You can download it. If you click on the document, you have a little arrow that will allow you to download this resource, and you will have these tools that were presented today. Are there anything to add here? We are now getting to the Q&A. Thank you, Shal, for all of these different tools and strategies. It's very inspiring. The Miro site that you're sharing, will it be online for a good amount of time? Yes. So I have some questions. It's Najwa who's asking a question 30 minutes ago, but I'm not sure I understand. How do you download these resources, these tools? I think she's talking about Miro, that it's a website that you can use with an institutional email account. Are there things to add to that? Yes. Well, if you talk about downloading the Miro app, you can use it in different ways. It's an online app. So you can have access with a web browser. You connect and you're in. So there's also a desktop version that you can download if you want to work with the app. Sometimes it's a bit easier, especially if you're working remotely. You can do that, but it's sometimes you can put some resources up within Miro. You can share documents, PDF documents within Miro. You click on this resource, and then you can download. And the same with other apps where you can share documents and resources. Thank you. There's Louise Durabert. She's asking the following question. Can the students also get a Miro account for free to manage their own activities? I'm talking about more of a personal account. Can they do it on their own as well? Or maybe I don't understand. No, I understand. So when there's many ways to share a Miro table, in this sandbox, this canvas. You can share it with collaborators, with team members. There are different levels. So you can be an editor, which will allow you editing rights. So to do the same thing you do in a way. So today you are read only. You can only read the contents. So this is a way of sharing, if you will. And what I was saying earlier, the second part of the answer, what I was saying earlier is the students, if we want to follow their activities within the admin part of Miro, because you will have a team where you will ask the students to join the team. And so to do that, they will have to create a Miro account. And there are Miro accounts for students as well. It's not just for teachers, but also for students. Thank you. A very good, clear answer. There's Vivienne Brouillard, who's asking a more technical question. Have you built all of this in Miro directly? Because it looks like a PowerPoint presentation as well. Do you create everything in Miro, or do you import it from PowerPoint? Well, hold on a second. Yes. Everything that is there today was created in Miro. There may be some screenshots that were put in there, but that were imported from elsewhere, as you would do in a PowerPoint presentation. So the answer is yes. Everything is created in Miro. There are a lot of tools to create visual aspects of the presentation. Sometimes we don't really like to start from a blank canvas when we build a presentation. So there's a lot of different models. There's a lot of pre-assembled models that you can use to build from. There's a lot of different pre-made things that you can build from. You have to go and look for the different formats that you can use. So yes, there's a lot of pictures, images, diagrams, visual aids, emojis, and things you can use within the tool. Thank you. Now, this is a question from me. First of all, thank you for all your suggestions and resources that you've shared. Can you tell me if it's easy to learn, if there are tutorials or guides to learn Miro? Probably there are some things you can share with us around that. The learning curve, the time to learn it. Is it complex, easy to learn, user-friendly? Are there resources? That's a good question. And as I often say, if you only do one activity with Miro, honestly, I don't think that I would propose that my students to learn all of Miro to do one 45-minute activity. I think that when you decide to use Miro, you use it for many activities in a semester. In 15 minutes, we can explore this tool. What's interesting is to visualize, to see the first video, to have a visual idea, and to cover basic concepts, then you can have a basic idea of how to use these tools. And then there are people that pick up things a lot quicker than others with regards to technology and digital tools. Sometimes in a team, there are students that just naturally pick things up and use the tool. They kind of hit the ground running. So others that will be a bit slower and they will have a different way of contributing to the team, less hands-on. So it's about a 15-minute activity, 5-minute intro, then exercises following that. So some students pick it up very quickly. It's pretty user-friendly, especially if you are familiar with digital tools. There's Marie Abruma that had to leave, but she said she would watch the video to get her answer. She's asking if the journaling can be done in Miro itself and used by the students to do journaling, the tools within Miro. So from my experience, that's a good question. From my experience doing text editing in Miro, so doing word processing in Miro would not be ideal, I think. So to give you a short answer, using a text box or a short post-it, it would be okay, but it wouldn't be the best way to do it. I think there are other tools to do that. So it would be not in Miro. So that said, with the journaling, I open the door to the students to have a visual part of it. If they want to have their questions, and so one specific question with Miro because they want to share a visual something visual, so to add things to the canvas instead of doing it in a Word document. So I invite them to do that. So a journal and a document that accompanies what they do with Miro, a kind of a Word document, if you will. So Louise is also asking a question. Suppose you work with 5 teams that all work with 5 different whiteboards. Is it possible to bring together all the different whiteboards into one? You would have to present that in the classroom, you would have to visit the 5 whiteboards. So that said, it's very easy to copy a table and to transpose it into another whiteboard. So you can have a part at the end of the activity where we will, in a main space, bring together all the different whiteboards together. But I discovered a functionality in preparing the presentation today, and I think you can create private spaces within a main whiteboard which simulates a group space, and then there are subspaces, and then the teacher can navigate through these subspaces for the different teams. So it would be something to explore. I've just learned about it. So the ideal way is to have a space on a main board where the 5 teams will have a space. I have no more questions. There's 4 minutes left. Yes, I would like to thank you once again for this wonderful presentation, the enriching content, the wonderful resources you've shared for people to learn Miro, and all the different tools that you've shared and strategies to encourage us to go and learn Miro. Would you want to add anything to your presentation? Well, it's a tool that is a really special kind of tool when you're not used to using it. So the idea here is to really use it, explore, get familiar with it before using it in the classroom. I think you have to play with it for a while to be ready to use it in the classroom, as I said. But it's really a wonderful space to co-create, to run activities, and I encourage you to do so, and I invite you to ask questions. I'll be very happy to answer. It's a tool that I have been having fun with for many years now, and it really enriches the interaction with content and with the students, and I think that it's the visual part of it that really enriches the activities and presentations we can do. And if we work with Miro and plagiarism and this and that and different issues, I think it's a great way to get people to work together and to really avoid plagiarism, because it's a co-creation online. It's open. I really use it in a framework of sharing and open information. Information is shared with everybody, and then each product, each project, when things sometimes are top secret, you just have to change the way we do things sometimes. But the idea is to have a contribution from everybody in the class, instead of developing ideas that we will only keep to ourselves, or between a team and a teacher. So the idea is to share everything as much as possible. So thank you once again, Charles. And yes, thank you to everybody who's been with us today. Please fill out the survey. It really helps us to plan further activities. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Jad. And thank you to Alex, who was the interpreter today into English. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and go out and enjoy the sun. See you soon. Thank you. Goodbye.